Truth has never belonged to one nation, one language, or one family. Truth belongs to those who seek it with sincerity. Many people live and die following a faith they inherited, never questioning it, never exploring it, never testing it against their conscience. But there are some souls whom Allah chooses for a different journey, a journey that begins with questions and ends with certainty. This is the story of a Christian who did not abandon faith, but found its completion. A person who did not reject Jesus, but understood him better after accepting Islam. A heart that was restless, searching for answers that sermons and rituals could not fully provide. For years, this individual believed in God, prayed, and tried to live morally. Yet deep inside, questions remained unanswered. Who is God truly? Is he one or three? Why does salvation require blood? Why does the concept of inherited sin contradict divine justice? These questions were not born out of rebellion, but sincerity. And sincerity never goes unanswered. Then came a moment that changed everything. A vision. Not a dream of confusion, but a vision of clarity. The vision of Prophet Muhammad. A face filled with dignity, mercy, and truth. A presence that brought peace instead of fear, certainty instead of doubt. No words were spoken, yet the heart understood everything. Sometimes truth does not need arguments. It needs recognition.
This vision pushed the seeker towards study. Who was this man, Prophet Muhammad? An orphan who never lied. A man trusted even by his enemies. A prophet who forgave those who tortured him. A leader who lived simply, slept on a mat, and fed the poor before himself. A messenger who claimed nothing for himself except that he was a servant of God. When his life was compared to the claims of prophethood, something became clear. Liars seek power, wealth, and praise. Muhammad rejected all of it. What he brought was not personal benefit, but a complete way of life centered on one God. The teachings of Islam answered questions Christianity left unresolved. One God, absolute and indivisible. No inherited sin, every soul responsible for itself. No intermediary between God and his creation. A direct connection between the servant and the Creator. A religion that balanced faith with reason, worship with justice, and spirituality with daily life. Islam is often misunderstood as a rejection of the faiths that came before it, but in reality, Islam presents itself as their completion. It does not erase the legacy of earlier prophets. Rather, it restores their original message, free from later alterations and misunderstandings. Islam teaches that God sent guidance to humanity throughout history, addressing different communities according to their time and circumstances, and that this guidance followed one consistent truth: worship one God alone and live a life of moral responsibility. From the Islamic perspective, prophets like Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus were all messengers of the same divine message. Islam does not ask its followers to deny them. Instead, belief in all of them is a core part of Islamic faith. Rejecting any prophet is considered a rejection of faith itself. This alone shows that Islam is not a break from earlier religions, but a continuation of a single divine plan. What Islam completes is not the existence of faith in God, but the clarity of that faith. Concepts that became complex or disputed over time are simplified. God is one, absolute, and unlike his creation. Salvation is not inherited or exclusive, but earned through belief, sincerity, and righteous action. Every individual stands accountable for their own choices, without carrying the burden of another's sin. Islam also completes. It does not limit religion to churches or sacred days, but weaves it into daily life. How one earns, speaks, treats family, and deals with society. Spirituality is not separated from justice, and worship is not detached from ethics. The finality of Prophet Muhammad does not negate previous prophets, it seals their mission. His message preserved the original teachings, unified them, and made them accessible to all humanity. In this way, Islam stands not as a rejection of what came before, but as the fulfillment of a long journey of divine guidance. There are moments in life when the heart is shaken in a way no argument, book, or debate can achieve. A vision is not merely something seen with the eyes, it is something felt deep within the soul. For a seeker of truth, such a moment becomes a turning point where doubt begins to collapse and certainty quietly takes its place. This is the kind of vision that does not confuse or frighten, but calms the heart while awakening it at the same time. Seeing Prophet Muhammad in a vision carries a weight unlike any ordinary experience. It is not about imagination or emotion alone. It is about recognition. The heart senses honesty, mercy, and authority all at once. There is no loud proclamation, yet the message is clear. The presence itself. Many who experience such a vision describe a peace they had never known. A peace that feels familiar, as if the soul has finally encountered something it was always meant to recognize. This vision does not end the journey, it begins it. After the heart is shaken, the mind seeks understanding. Questions that once felt heavy now feel answerable. Curiosity replaces fear. The seeker begins to learn about the life of the Prophet ﷺ, only to discover that the character seen in the vision matches perfectly with history. His truthfulness, humility, patience, and mercy. There is no contradiction between the experience of the heart and the evidence of reason. What makes such a vision powerful is not spectacle, but transformation. Old attachments begin to loosen. Pride gives way to humility. Resistance softens into acceptance. The soul feels drawn toward truth without force, as if gently guided rather than pushed. A vision that shakes the heart is not meant to replace faith or effort. It is a mercy, a door opened by Allah for a sincere seeker. It reminds us that guidance is not always loud or public. Sometimes it arrives quietly, deeply, and personally, changing a lifetime in a single moment, and leaving the heart forever aware that truth has been encountered and can no longer be ignored. The character of the final prophet ﷺ is one of the strongest proofs of his truthfulness. Because character cannot be sustained through pretense. Claims can be fabricated, speeches can be memorized, and ideologies can be borrowed. But a lifetime of moral excellence under every condition reveals authenticity. Even before prophethood, Muhammad was known among his people as Al-Amin, the trustworthy one. Friend and enemy alike relied on his honesty, long before he ever claimed to be a messenger of God. When he was given prophethood, his character did not change for convenience or power. Persecution did not make him bitter, and victory did not make him arrogant. He was insulted, mocked, stoned, and boycotted, yet he responded with patience and prayer rather than revenge. When he finally stood victorious over those who had harmed him, he forgave them without conditions. This level of mercy is not weakness. It is strength rooted in certainty of truth. The prophet lived with humility despite being a leader of a growing nation. He mended his own clothes, served his family, and sat among the poor without distinction. Wealth passed through his hands, but never settled in his heart. He slept on a simple mat, fasted regularly, and reminded people that this world was a temporary stop, not a permanent home. His justice was uncompromising, even when it went against personal ties. He declared that if his own daughter were to commit a crime, the law would apply to her equally. His compassion extended to women, children, slaves, animals, and even the environment at a time when such values were rare. The character of Prophet Muhammad was not an abstract ideal. It was lived daily, publicly, and consistently. This is why hearts across centuries and cultures continue to recognize him as the true messenger of God. His life was the message, and his character was the proof. For many seekers, faith begins as theology, a collection of doctrines, inherited beliefs, and philosophical explanations about God. These ideas may sound profound, yet they often remain distant from daily life. Questions linger beneath the surface. Who is God in reality? How does belief translate into justice, purpose, and inner peace? When theology fails to move beyond theory, the heart remains unsettled, even if the mind is convinced. The journey from theology to reality begins when belief becomes simple, clear, and lived. Islam addresses the deepest theological questions with clarity that resonates with both reason and conscience. God is one, not divided, not distant, and not abstract. He is directly accessible, without intermediaries, rituals of confusion, or inherited guilt. This simplicity does not weaken faith, it strengthens it by grounding it in certainty. What makes Islam transformative is that it does not leave belief suspended in the mind. Every concept is translated into action. Belief in one God becomes humility because no human is divine. Accountability in the hereafter becomes justice because every action matters. Prayer becomes a daily meeting with the Creator, not a symbolic gesture. Fasting builds discipline and empathy, not merely ritual abstinence. Charity cleanses wealth and heals society, rather than existing as an optional virtue. Theology often debates salvation. Islam defines a path toward it. No one carries the burden of another's sin. Each soul is honored with responsibility and free will. Repentance is direct, immediate, and always open, without needing confession to another human being. As belief turns into lived reality, faith stops being an identity label and becomes a way of life. The seeker discovers that Islam does not ask for blind belief, nor does it reduce religion to emotion. It unites reason, spirituality, and practice into one coherent whole. In that unity, faith finally feels real, felt in the heart, understood by the mind, and reflected in every action. Accepting the truth is rarely a comfortable act. It is often imagined as a moment of relief, but in reality, it begins with inner conflict. When truth becomes clear, it demands a response, and that response usually comes at a cost. Courage is not required to follow what is familiar. It is required to walk away from it when the heart knows it is incomplete. This is the silent battle faced by anyone who stands at the edge of truth. The mind may accept the evidence, but the heart trembles at the consequences. Family expectations, social identity, cultural belonging, and lifelong habits all rise as barriers. The fear of rejection, isolation, and misunderstanding can be overwhelming. Accepting Islam, especially after a lifetime in another faith, is not merely a change of belief. It is a redefinition of self. It means choosing honesty with God over approval from people. This courage is not loud or dramatic. It often unfolds in private moments, late-night prayers, tears shed in solitude, and unanswered questions whispered to God. The seeker weighs everything that may be lost against the truth that has been found. And in that weighing, something powerful happens. The realization that living a life for comfort is heavier than carrying the truth with hardship. When the decision is finally made, fear does not instantly disappear, but it is replaced by peace. A quiet strength settles in the heart, born from sincerity. The world may not understand, relationships may strain, and the path ahead may feel lonely, but the soul feels aligned for the first time. Courage to accept the truth is ultimately an act of trust. Trust that Allah does not guide a heart only to abandon it. Those who take this step discover that what they feared losing was temporary, but what they gained was eternal. Truth may demand sacrifice, but it never leaves the believer empty. Islam presents itself not as a break from earlier faiths, but as their natural conclusion. It does not arrive to erase what came before. It comes to restore, clarify, and preserve the original message that God sent to humanity from the very beginning. According to Islam, revelation was a continuous process, delivered through many prophets to different nations, all calling toward the same core truth: worship one God and live with moral responsibility. Over time, teachings were altered, meanings disputed, and divine simplicity buried under layers of philosophy and institutional control. Islam addresses this not by condemning previous prophets, but by honoring them. Belief in Abraham, Moses, and Jesus is not optional in Islam. It is essential. This alone challenges the idea that Islam is a rejection. A faith that commands love and respect for earlier messengers cannot logically be a denial of them. What Islam completes is clarity. Where confusion entered, Islam simplifies. God is not divided, incarnated, or dependent. He is one, absolute, and directly accessible. Human beings are not born sinful, nor do they require another sacrifice to be forgiven. Accountability is individual, mercy is vast, and repentance is always open. These principles align divine justice with divine compassion. Islam also completes guidance by making it universal and preserved. The Quran was not sent to one ethnicity or era, but to all humanity, and its message remains unchanged. It connects belief to daily life, ensuring that faith shapes character, ethics, and social responsibility rather than remaining confined to ritual spaces. The finality of Prophet Muhammad does not cancel previous missions, it seals them. His message gathers all earlier truths into a single, protected framework. In this way, Islam stands as fulfillment, not replacement, an answer to a long spiritual journey rather than a rejection of its earlier steps.